So now we get to addressing the gold standard. The AAMA, the American Association of Medical Assistants, is a rooted organization. What I mean is it has the deepest roots of medical assisting history. It was founded in 1957 by Maxine Williams, and it is an organization that is known to have a rich history, rigorous standards, and eligibility requirements. The eligibility requirements, this is what has led to consideration of a gold standard. I don't know where the gold standard concept started, but a lot of times there would be kind of just a known that it's known and that it's been discussed around the idea that when we're talking about certain organizations that there is a gold standard. But again, as we talked about throughout, even though it's rich in history and the AAMA was the original foundation for the medical assisting program in 1969, which created these curriculum items and standards. So why is it possibly viewed or considered? I think it's because it is an organization that is rooted. It is where everything started for the medical assisting profession.
I would also add to that the eligibility requirements there are of those in the market the strictest. That need to not just be from an academic program, but an accredited program to be eligible can be what may establish this. Well, if the scope of eligibility is so tight, you must have done XYZ to get there. It must be a great certification, right? There's
Correct.
that kind of newsreel that's out there.
Yes.
So anything else you want to add to this, Christiana?
Not to that. No, I think you hit the nail on the head there, that because of the rigorous standards and the rich history, right? And then the rigorous standards, that when somebody is viewing these programs or accreditations or certifications, whatever it is, they will see that, oh, exactly like you said, if they passed that, if they obtained that, then something must be extra special.
Right. But we know that the exam itself is established by those expectations of the MAERB KHEP requirements, not necessarily eligibility. The test is based off of those expectations. Whether or not you can test is not within that scope. So we wanted to provide a couple of possible options, sound bites for the sales team as potential responses when they hear this phrase gold standard. Now we know where it comes from, why people might say it, but how do we address it in a real-time way? So these were a couple of snapshots, but these were something that we would like to provide out to sales as options to respond that meet accuracy, still provide a layer of respect for any potential, we don't want to say that anything negative about a potential competitor. That's not what we're here to do. We want to recognize that we meet the same standards, right? We hit the same boxes on that checklist. Christiana, did you want to add anything to this?
No, I think you're absolutely right. The educational standards and competencies are across the board the same. The information is the same. You're absolutely correct. You explained it perfectly.
So to take that to the next step, we wanted to also break down some potential continued discovery questions that when our sales team does get these questions around a potential competitor, specifically within the MA space, and that phrase gold standard, a series of possible reactions. Well, what does gold standard mean to you? What are those different pieces that establish, that make it for you that level? What are your requirements? These are just some additional questions so that we have some way for sales to be able to respond back and give more conversation around the topic without being afraid of it, without having to naysay anybody, but also being able to lean in and try to understand where that discrepancy is coming from, and also help to position accurately where the exam development, the rigor of the test may fall comparatively to what a reputation may or may not be. Christiana, did you want to add anything here?
No, again, I think this is such a great aspect to take in terms of, really getting to the root of what the concern is, engaging dialogue with the customer and the clients and finding out what's behind their reasoning for asking or for bringing it up. And I think a lot of times any type of resistance could be easily overcome by presenting these questions and having a more focused conversation regarding their concerns.
Okay, so we're coming to the close of our 4-part session for the MA deep dive into the profession. We're going to just go over a quick summary and some next steps for you. So let's just do a quick recap of the 4 main components that we covered during this time together, beginning with the profession itself. We know that medical assistants do have the need to have the skills in both front and back office administrative work. They are often tasked to do both. Administrative assisting is a part of the MA role, but it is not the same as being an administrative assistant. Now, the clinical medical assistant scope of practice is defined based off of the state of employment. So that's not the same as what's necessarily going to be on the exam, though it can influence it across the country. Commonalities across the country are going to be parts of the job task analysis of what we're going to test those learners on in conjunction with our accreditation needs. A look at the history. We know that the MA profession has a deep root in the healthcare industry going all the way back to the 60s. And the AAMA was the first institution, though under a slightly abbreviated name at the time, to provide MA certification exams. Each major MA certification organization does define its own eligibility requirements. So eligibility is a little bit different than what is in the scope of practice or in the exam itself. And that NHA's eligibility does allow for accredited or state recognized academic programs. So that does allow for us to open a more broad scope for that eligibility to include the career and technical education channel, work experience, military experience, apprenticeships, employer-based training programs, all kinds of different opportunities for those potential candidates. We spent a lot of time talking about accreditation, and I know that that isn't necessarily immediately applicable for everybody, but it is an important part of the conversation for you to know. Believe it or not, our long-term clients who work in the academic space probably struggle with this concept in general. There's a lot of moving pieces to it, from institution accreditation to programmatic accreditation to the certification itself being accredited. Lots of different layers there. Your comfort and ability to answer questions in this space is really helpful. And we, of course, have resources to help you there as well. NHA is what's called a sponsoring organization of Mayor Ben Kahep, which means that we are a part of the team that actually helps to determine what those expectations are in that accrediting process for different certification exams. Some MA certification providers don't follow the full process to become accredited and instead opt to pay the membership fee to become a member of the ICE. That is not the same as being accredited, which all of NHA's exams are. They all have the NCCA accreditation through the ICE. And then finally addressing the quote gold standard, which is a phrase that is used not uncommonly within the space to talk about different layers of value in different potential MA exams. And the real differentiator here is about eligibility to test, not what they're being tested on. We know that all of the accredited certifications require the same expectations for standards. So that gold standard is a misnomer, is a misconception that's been used due to what was expected in the past or just a misconception in general. How we address these questions is key. NHA's exam meets the exact same rigor and expectations as any NCCA accredited certification for medical assistants. So what's next? The next step is you're going to be going through a final assessment, a little quiz on the gold standard, but then you're going to be asked to go through a couple of steps. And one of them is to create positioning statements for each of these potential responses from a client. So read through these. I only suggest the NHA exam for my students if they can't pass the fill in the blank, since it's an easier exam. How would you respond to that? Local employers in our market don't recognize NHA's CCMA exam. Are they sure? We're happy using the gold standard exam. NHA is not as good because they allow anyone to test. Now we know that these are statements we've gotten in the past. How would you respond? And then even more importantly, let's respond with more questions. How do they know? What do they know about the exam? What makes you think that NHA's exam is easier? Define for me what gold standard means to you. Read through these, take some time, fill out the worksheet. So the next final steps for you are to complete these final pieces. Let your team lead or director know that you've finished the deep dive so that we can take a look and respond with any questions you may have. And finally, congratulations. Thank you so much for sitting through this 4-part series. We're excited to hear your feedback on how this went, what you thought, any questions that you may have. So please reach out, let us know. Thank you for all of your hard work and dedication. Now let's get out there and help those learners to access a better future.